attending.
Okay, good morning. I'm Tom Duffy. Our
I'll do
company.
an introduction real quick, Tom.
What's that?
So I'll do a quick introduction.
Okay, fantastic.
Sorry. Good morning. I'm Buddy Hellman. I'm the process and automation person for Tri-State. Thanks for attending the webinar today. We'll be going over some products that we have that we can offer for Stober, XLR, and Macron Dynamics. So, and then there's another one that Tom will go over as well. EAC is a partner of that we use for supplying these products, and Tom will go through and give you an overview of all these products. But if you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to myself. On the Tri-State side, we also have people on the Mosboss side. We got Bill Smith. We got Paul Devers. We got a few other people from the Mosboss side as well, but those are the two that typically, I guess, handle the motion. On the Tri-State side, you have myself and Dale Parker that handle the motion products. So again, if you have any questions or want to follow up after this, please reach out to us and we can set up a meeting. From there, I'll let Tom take it over. The other thing is, if you have any questions, send them in the chat if you don't want to forget about them. But after each section, we are going to pause so you can ask your questions, and we'll do a Q&A after each section. So, yeah, Tom, I'll let you.
All right. Good morning, gentlemen. I assume it's all gentlemen here, but anyway, thank you. I appreciate you taking the time to review. We'll go through this fairly quickly. You can slow me down if you need to. And then as Buddy said, at the end of each section, we can go back, we can jump back and do what we need to if you have any particular questions. The three principles right up on the screen, what you see now is my line card. These are the companies that we represent. We've been in the controls and automation business. I've been involved in it for the last 38 years. So we have a lot of expertise, and our expertise is in motion control, just as yours. I'm a mechanical engineer. We also have electrical engineers on board, but we bring the mechanical solutions to you to make your selling much more effective. Okay. The first principle we're going to cover here is Stober drives, and Stober is an Encompass partner with Rockwell, and they make a series of large, broad base of gear reducers, precision gear reducers, right angle, planetary. We do rack and pinion and such, and we'll get into that as we go. But the neat thing is make a very broad array of units, including our F-style up here, which is a parallel inline, offset inline, which is a really unique piece of equipment. We bring a very broad base to you, which allows you to solve all your applications. So we're looking to be your one-stop shop here for solving your reductions. We also make some special drives, which we'll get into, hollow bores and inline gear motors, such we'll talk about. But one of the really great things about the Stober reducers are they're very tough. They're very industrial, very tough. They can take a lot of different harsh environments, including we have versions that are IP69 for your food and wash down and such. We also make we put a bunch of different coatings on. Our standard coating is a non-wash down, but we also make corrosion resistant if you get into some nasty environments. Food duty is severe wash downs, caustic sprays and such. So, and then we also make full stainless steel units as well. The interesting thing is we also get involved in explosion proof units. Now, you don't normally think about reducers being explosion proof because mostly it's on the electrical end, but they're ATEX rated. But they do come in handy. The reducers can get very hot, very warm, and that's why we went out and got ratings. We do a lot of work in the process control industry, oil and gas, power generation, gas and oil transmission through the pipelines and such. And they're looking for the explosion proof, and Stober is a really good addition to your motors and drives for those industries. Okay. They're very, very precise, very accurate. In a lot of cases, we're less than 1 arc minute of backlash, very high torque. Whoops, excuse me, apologize. And then we also have a lower cost inline planetaries if you get into an economic situation. But they're really designed to be robust and tough. We're the actuator of choice or the reducer of choice when they want long life, low cost of ownership is really what their mantra is. So we may be a couple more dollars on the front end, but we'll last a lot longer. And you'll see that when we show you our warranty at the end of this presentation. Okay. A lot of different flexibilities mounting. We got the inlines at the top, the C series. We have our bread and butter, which is our SMS, the K series right angle units. Oops, I keep apologize, gentlemen. And then our offset inline with the F style. This is really unique. If you get into situations where you need to do belt, instead of doing belt drives, we do with the offset. The neat thing is here, number one, it's much more rigid. And number two, it gives you the ability where if you do a belt and pull, you're typically limited to 2-to-1, 3-to-1 belting or chain. Here we can go up to 70, 80 or 80-to-1 reduction. So we can get you higher reductions. We can also go higher than that if need be with adding an inline, additional inline reducer. And they're also quiet. So it allows you to tuck your motors underneath things and such, get your motor and drive out of the way, out of the aisles and such. It's a really unique reducer for applications. We also supply full motors, hollow bore motors that work in conjunction with your Rockwell drives. So if you need to bring utilities through or you need a flange on the output, you can pass right through the center of our drive. And we have the feedback there. We'll show up just as a regular motor on your Rockwell configurations. Okay. We can do some interesting things with that, including putting a spindle through that hollow bore as well to make a linear actuator. Okay. Connectorized or connectorized for your drives, the various drives, including the single connector solutions. Okay. This one you need to start thinking about. We make dynamic brakes for servo applications. So you have brakes on your motors, and the brakes on your motors work well, but they're for holding the load after the load is stopped. If you have a vertical load, you have some of the load where they may, in an emergency situation, stop that load. We put a brake right in line between the motor and the reducer, and that acts as a dynamic brake that'll stop the load under motion. Okay, it also becomes a really good redundant brake if you have a customer who's looking for redundant braking. So we adapt. Everybody's really, you don't need to look at that here, but let's skip through there. So we have one partner, one vendor, one source for your gearbox and motors. We adapt everybody's thing. The other thing we do is we make gear motors. And the reason you would look at gear motors is they become very compact because we're eliminating basically 2 sets of bearings and 2 seals because the motor and the reducer are all one. So they generate less friction, generate less heat. Okay. They eliminate the motor adapter, which is going to reduce your cost, but most importantly, it shrinks the size of your package. And that's the main reason people get into this. Okay. Here's an idea. So we go from having a gear motor versus having a gear reducer. Okay, you have a gear reducer and here's your gear motor. Okay, much smaller package in length. Okay, in a lot of cases we can go in line. We also have a higher torque density. As you see, our pinion is right on the output shaft of the motor. We've eliminated the 2 bearings, eliminated the 2 seals. So the unit becomes stiffer, better accuracies, and less heat generation. As you'll see, it's much shorter in a package. Okay. Back, no more premature failure due to installation errors, and that's basically where you have problems. Typically in the field is when someone's mounting one of your motors to a reducer. Here, this whole thing comes in as a package. Okay. So we guarantee the assembly put together. Gear motor resort, we talk about eliminating the bearings and such, lower inertia reduction. You get much better. The other advantage you get out of the package is without the reducers or the bearings and the seals, you get much better response if you have a really high speed application. and you need quick response out of your motor. We can achieve that by doing the gear motor. And therefore, since we also do that and everything's bundled together, it's a stiffer package, lower settling time in there. Okay. The other advantage is if you know, a lot of cases, you're going to go right angle in your reduction just to get the motor out of the way. In a lot of cases, when we do a gear motor, we're putting the gearing right on the motor. The motor gearbox length is really about the same length as the right angle, and you still have to put the motor down the bottom. So it becomes a really nice package there. As I said before, we get, you know, the hollow bore, we put a ball screw, do a hollow bore with a flange, and then we can also couple to the ball screw. And here's the reasons we just talked about. Dynamic reduces your inertia. Hollow bore, you can pass media through. Compact, again, really compact, smaller envelopes. Very stiff because everything's built right in the same package, and it's easy to mount to. Just a different brand for different applications. Okay. Same thing we're talking about here. Stober also gets into rack and pinion systems with our motors. So I'm going to show you a quick video here, which we'll get into of how this works with Stober. So just bear with me. We can. All right, so that was our rack and pinion. Also give you an idea. The other thing that they touched on, which I want to touch on again, is that Stober has a phenomenal applications group. They dig right in, and I know Buddy and Dale have used it. Working with them, they'll fit any application. We're here to help you overall out in the field, and we're available for customer calls and customer visits. Also to bounce ideas off as far as application and doing sizing and such. But our application group at Stober, which is in Kentucky, by the way, They work extremely well. They're great to work with, very easy to work with. One of the things you're going to find with Stober is that we talked about early on, we're the reducer of last resort, not necessarily last resort, but we're the last reducer you typically put in because we do a lot of replacement of other people's reducers who have failed in the field. We're a higher end product. We offer a 5-year warranty on our reducers. Okay. The neat thing is Stober is a German company, but they have 2 plants in Kentucky right next to each other. And we do have a huge inventory in there. Right now, we're winning a lot of business because in a lot of cases, we're shipping within a day, within a couple of days, whereas other people are talking about 6, 8, 10 weeks. We're still shipping in that 1 to 3 day type time frame. So anyway, they're a great reducer. They've been wonderful for us. I know we've worked with Buddy and Dale on applications. So anyway, any questions on Stober? Buddy, you want to open it up?
Yeah, I think they can take themselves off mute to ask any question that they would like, or they could submit it in the chat.
Okay. I haven't seen anything I said, so we can want to move on.
I had a quick question.
Sure.
So on the gear motors, how compatible? I'm assuming those are your servos, Stober brand servos on there.
Well, it would be our motor, but it'd be your servo drive.
So it'd be a Rockwell servo. So
And it would hang on your system. It shows up as one of your motors.
Okay, that's cool. That was my next question because I have dealt with people, companies in the past where it has to be if it's a gear motor to reduce the size, it has to be their motor, and then
it becomes your motor.
Okay.
Yeah, we're building it, becomes your motor. It's hanging on your drive. And we go from there. And the neat thing is we fill in a lot of the gaps that you have within your own motor. And you guys have a broad motor, array of motors, but we fill in those gaps. We're looking for really the specialty applications, the ones where you're having issues. And we spent a lot of time, I talked about gear motors. And one of the reasons we would supply motor is to get a more compact package that you can fit in your application. So if you have real estate problems, we fit in really well. If you need hollow bore, obviously we've got a solution for that. If you need a flanged output motor, we're doing that as well for you. So that's where we fit in, Bill.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
Cool. The other thing to mention here too, Tom, is that, Rockwell has a tool that's motion analyzer.
I'm sorry, buddy. I didn't hear that.
Another thing that Rockwell has is a tool to help you select the motor and the gearboxes. Is motion analyzer.
Yeah, your
So
motion
please look
analyzer,
up
we're
Rockwell.
on motion analyzer for you. So as you go through that, we show up as one of your solutions.
Yes. So that's something as you're sizing the application, and sometimes that'll involve getting mechanical engineers involved. There's a tool out there that we can help with that sizing.
Yep. And then if you need to, as you get into that, if any stumbling, anything, obviously Buddy and Dale or whoever from the Mosbach, but also the Stober application people are wonderful to work with. They're very familiar with the Rockwell drives and such, and they can certainly help you put a package together for us. Okay. Any other questions on Stober? All right, we're going to move along to our next one, which is XLR. XLR is the division of Curtiss Wright, the airplane and aerospace folks. The XLR makes linear actuators via roller screws, and we do some rotary too, but for the most part, we're known for our linear actuators. A lot of you folks probably have heard of ball screws, where we use balls to thing. We show a little bit of that with Stober, and they make it. They're a good solution for certain end. Roller screw is going to give you a lot more thrust per package and a lot more thread contact. As you see on the screen here, in the same area, we're getting a lot higher thread contact than you will with balls. So we can put a lot more thrust in a smaller package, or get a lot longer life in the same size package. So what a planetary roller screw is, it's a series of planets that goes around a central screw, and then the nut turns as well, and the nut can either be the output, which we'll show you, or that center screw can be the output. There's 2 different versions. One's called an inverted roller screw, and the other one's a straight roller screw. Our large actuators are what's called a commercial. It's a standard roller screw, where we actually turn and we move the nut in and out. This is our FTX series, which is the parallel mount. This is what we're showing here. So your motor, I'm sorry, go back to that. Your motor would get mounted at the top there, 1-to-1 or 2-to-1 belt drive. We also make them inline. So you see up here on the screen, the cutaway, the construction, a large bearing support. And one of the challenges of doing any screw application where XLR has really made their name is how it's packaged. The ball screw and a roller screw technology has been around for decades, 40, 50, 60 years. The challenge really comes in is how it's packaged, and XLR has perfected the packaging of those screws. And it really comes down to the bearing support, so you don't get too much whip. So we go up to 48-inch stroke. They're packaged in housings, IP65. We have some others that are IP67. They're epoxy coated. We also make some stainless steel versions, but we'll get into that. And then the rod is either a male or female output rod. Okay. The FTX series is a modular series. It's one of our newer large actuator series. Everything is a bolt-on. So we have the base actuator, we do an inline mount, we do a parallel mount. We can do front flanges. The mount I like best is a rear clevis to clevis. That way all the force is right down the actuator. We also do a rear eye, which is basically a clevis, just the male version of that. We do a rear trunnion, which is like a cannon mount that allows it to pivot and go. And we can also put in limit switches on there. Some of the applications, again, it's heavy duty, heavy industry for the larger actuators. We do tube bending, do a lot in the injection molding area, especially up in the northwestern PA, where there's a lot of mold houses and such up there. We do a lot of moving of molds in and out and inserting and pulling, doing core pulls and such on injection molding. We'll move jigs and fixtures around, tire business. We do a lot of presses. We do a lot of pressing with the large actuators. Makes a great press. We're basically, where you're going to see your applications is pneumatic actuators, but more importantly, even hydraulic actuators. Hydraulics are great, but nobody likes them. Even the hydraulics guys don't like them because eventually they're all going to leak. All right, that's just the nature of that beast. Electric actuators don't leak. Okay, and it's great. Put a servo motor on it, you get complete control, you get complete feedback. The bulk of our applications are replacing hydraulic cylinders. We also make that same series, we make what we call an FTP. And the reason being is a large percentage of our applications are for pressing. Okay, where we're pressing, we're forming, we're swaging. And that's where a lot of these cylinders are used, and we're pressing things together. Same type of construction, except this housing is designed to allow us to have higher force in one direction. Here's our press applications: pressing position, pressure shoulder, press to an external sensor. And the neat thing is, with all the electronics and the servo package you have, we have some algorithms worked up that we can work with you. Whereas a hydraulic cylinder, typically we're pressing and you put a certain amount of hydraulic pressure in there and it's going to press that force. You don't know whether it's actually achieved that force or not, or whether you needed 1/10 of that force to get there and you just use the rest of it to go. With the electric and the feedback, you know not only what force you had, you also know what distance you pressed to. So you can now do a lot of quality assurance right on the application with your electric actuator. Okay, so we know that even if the part wasn't there, we went too far and we haven't seen any force, we know that, and that's a feedback that they can get back from your system. Okay. This is just comparison to our thing. As you see in our ratings, we're 40,000 pounds for our, that's a continuous rating for our largest FTX. They go from about 5,000 to 40,000 pounds. We can actually generate about twice that force. Okay. Presses, we're 80,000 pounds, 45,000 pounds for presses. So again, we can handle some pretty big stuff. The neat thing also doing electrically, we can synchronize or electronically gear a number of actuators together if we need to go into much higher forces. Okay. So that's the large series of linear actuators. We also make, and this is another big portion of our business, integrated electric actuators. In other words, what we're doing is we're actually wrapping the motor around the screw. Okay, so it looks like a motor, it acts like a motor, it shows up on your system as one of your motors, but in fact, it's a linear actuator. It's moving in and out. It can move at very high speeds. We have actuators that move up to 39 inches a second. We can produce up to about 20,000 pounds with this type of series. We can put multiple different types of feedback in the back end. We can do an absolute feedback. We can do an incremental. We can do a resolver feedback on the back end. Again, the connectors are designed to match with your system so that they show up. It shows up as one of your motors on your output. We go frame size from 2-inch to 6-inch. Again, we're talking about the connectors. We got IP65 rating and high temperature insulation as well. Okay. Some of the forces, we go from about 600 pounds up to 12,400. And actually this one maxes out at about 20,000 continuous or peak. I'm sorry, peak. Okay. And you'll see speeds. We use these. This was developed actually. These are great pumps, positive displacement pumps for food, for a very high viscous. It was actually developed for high viscous dairy pumping, yogurts, ricotta cheese, all type of that. We're pumps. We're a pump. This one is developed as a pump. It's very accurate. It's going to be within 1,000th of an inch per foot of stroke. So they're very accurate, very, very high speed. So you can change the volume on the fly doing this. Okay, there's a lot of different applications for these actuators. There's tens of thousands of these out in the field. So we go standard voltages, 115, 230, 400, 460. Strokes, we go up to about 18-inch in the configured units. Different leads to match. We can do the same type of mounting options, front flange, rear clevis. We do rod ends and the connectors to match your your servo drives. So they would be Rockwell servo drives driving the XLR actuators. Okay, there's some of the connectors that we do. We also do what we call an MPT fitting, which will allow, because we do a lot of these in the oil and gas industry. North of you guys are a great area for oil and gas, both in production and transmission. And we can make these explosion-proof rating. This gets into how we're doing our magnets. We're wrapping it so we get a high-density motor. That's who we compete with. Obviously, you're only concerned about the Rockwell, which is right there first, front and center. Servo amplifiers, like we talked about a little bit about the feedback. We do Hall sensors, but typically on our lower end units. Resolvers, if you get a really robust, rugged application, we'll do a resolver, increment encoder, or your absolute encoder. Again, these would match with your drive. GTX series is our new version of our integrated series. I'm going to fly through these a little bit, much shorter lead times because they're all modular. Same type of configuration and design. You'll notice just a single connector out there for your product. Modular, everything gets bolted on here. So same type of thing. You get a base actuator with the feedback module, and then you can do your different mounting options. Front flange, which is very common, the rear clevis, anti-rotate. We're a motor, so our shaft has to be confined. 90% of applications are already inherently anti-rotate. If for some reason yours isn't, we can put an anti-rotate system on there. It doesn't take much. I can take our biggest actuator, which is going to put out 20,000 pounds of force, and I can, with my 2 fingers, I can hold the shaft from rotating because they're extremely efficient. They're in the 93% efficient as far as the screws are concerned. Okay, there's our series of lengths. These are all metric, up to 450 millimeters. We talked a little bit about the mounting, side mounting, tapped face, which is new. We'll get rid of the front flange. We just tap the front face right on, make it more compact. Front flange and rear clevis. This is comparison to our existing product, our GSX product. Okay. And these are smaller actuators, smaller linear, but they're modular. We'd be using your motor. This would be your motor on here on our K series. So these are much smaller actuators. We go from a 60 millimeter frame. I'm going to show you 60 millimeter, 75 millimeter frame, and a 90 millimeter frame. Smaller ones putting out 1,350 pounds, 2,500 pounds, and 3,500 pounds. Again, still high speeds, guys. 33 inches a second, 20 inches a second. Okay, when they go up to 48-inch stroke. These are really good for packaging machines and other just general movements. Again, they're still accurate. They're still within a thousandth of an inch per foot of accuracy. But these would be using your motors, either mounted in a parallel configuration. Okay, same type of construction, just smaller. Okay. And again, we would be either parallel mount or inline mount for you. Same type of configurations, front flange, rear clevis, side mount, side trunnion, which is nice, foot mount, angles. We do a lot of replacement of pneumatic actuators with these, where they want the electric, all right? They want that I to P. Instead of putting all the I to P and everything else on the pneumatics, they're going right, and we're putting your motor on here, and they have the electric control where they typically had pneumatics before. Now with the electric control, they get all the feedback, they get all the force, they get everything else that goes along with that, and they're not blowing air continually. It's much more efficient from a power consumption. Okay. We also make a series, XR makes a series of integrated actuators. There's not, we have a lot of applications. It's a basically the actuator and the control. It'd be like if probably are familiar with the integrated stepper motors where the control is built right on it. These were developed for very, very simple applications, going from point A to point B. We do some pressing with them. Really where we use a lot of these on is on valves and process control, water valves, dampers, process control, because you'll see up here when we talk about the multifunction, we can take an analog IO, we can take a 0 to 10 volts, we can take -10 to +10, we can take 4 to 20 milliamp control. And that's really where these things live. What's really where everyone likes these is we can make them as AC or DC. The DC power, 12 volt, 48 volt. We do a lot of off-road vehicles, like New Holland that uses a lot of these and get rid of their hydraulics. They're putting these on their implements for farm implements and gardening and such, get rid of the hydraulics, just do electric. But the 12 to 48 volts is a real hot item. People like it, it's easier to control. We can also get them certifications for CE or CSA certified, explosion proof, and we're class 1 Div 2, which we do a lot in. We have a number of these out in your power plants out in your area for doing valves, doing dampers, doing throttle control, because they can also do high speed control and very high accuracy. Your power, your guys who are doing your gas transmission, oil transmission, they're hot and heavy in these things too, because we take the technology that we have in your servo systems and we're bringing it to that process world, which they're not used to. So we've got a much better capacities and response and accuracies, but we're physically about the third the size of what they currently put in their systems. So the service guys just absolutely love them because they just pick them up and they go. They don't need an engine hoist to change an actuator out. What's nice is once you get in there, it's volume. I mean, there's just a ton of them out there. Okay. Again, you got DC and AC. See, they're not huge actuators, but they fit a really good mix in there. Okay. So we need simple control. We also make them as rotary. We put them on our linear actuators because people like to control the simple analog control. Okay. Okay, and this is where we're living. We're living right here with the 4 to 20 control. We do CAN open. We can do Ethernet. Do a lot of Ethernet control as well. The oil and gas guys really like them. Oop, apologize, bouncing around here. Same type of thing. Feedbacks, Hall effect is the primary one because again, We're not talking about the accuracy of your type of servo motors. These are simple units. Okay. Where XLR has really done really well in is food processing. And everybody has it, no matter where you are in the country or really in the world, there's food processing. And these are all customers of ours, all the big guys. Okay. We can do stainless steel housings. We can do epoxy coating, which is really a better way to go on most of those, because stainless steel doesn't dissipate the heat very well. You can do better. We'll do stainless steel shafts. Again, we'll get them to IP65. I have a couple actually, they're out there, IP69 rating. Okay. Epoxy coating is a much better way to go. Holds up better. It's much more reasonable. Okay. Smooth white epoxy. Easier for wash down. The housing just dissipate the heat so much better. Okay. Again, we're doing a lot of replacement pneumatic actuators, pneumatic actuator replacement, so the electric solution for the pneumatic. And the nice thing is when you get into food and pharma and that type of thing, money becomes much less of an object at that point in time. They need a solution. They do not like the air in their plants. Number one, it's limited. Number two, it's very expensive. Okay. Do a lot of different food processing. We're going to go through a couple slides here just to show you some of the things. This is where we really cut our teeth. Waxlar was liquid packaging, biometric filling, milk, juice, yogurts, puddings, very heavy grease and lipstick, glues, paints, dental adhesive. I got a couple applications right now doing that. It's like pushing concrete. But they're very accurate as pumps, very accurate, and they can be changed on the fly. Electric control. We make a lot of pizza crusts. We make a lot of tortilla shells, meat cutting, meat slicing. One of the ones you're going to see here in a minute is one everybody loves, and that is, well, here's the next one is cheese cutting. We're cutting cheese, cutting blocks of cheese, pushing a blade right through it. Okay, replacing ball screws, hydraulics. This is doing cakes and brownies and all that kind of stuff, slicing. This is the one everybody loves. This is actually, we're putting the brine in a pork belly. We do a lot of making bacon, guys. We're just flat out making bacon. We're pushing the brine into pork bellies. So we do a lot in the food and farm. They're nice and clean. They're quiet. Okay. We do also. I'm from the Philly area. We do cheesesteaks. We do all the machines for all the cutters for the cutting cheesesteaks, for cutting the meat and putting the inner sleeve in between there. Okay, and other applications in there. That is XLR. Buddy, you want to open up for any questions?
Yes, if anyone has any questions, just click, or you can even enter in the chat session. And we can answer those questions.
I flew through that, folks, so let me know if you need me to come back. Dale?
Hey, Tom, I did have a question.
Sure.
On a typical hydraulic retrofit, so let's say you have a hydraulic cylinder that's a certain amount of pressure, force or whatever.
Right.
The physical size of the electric actuator, is it comparable? Is it bigger? Is it smaller to get the same amount of force?
So here's what's going to happen. And we do a lot of this, Dale. So I've got my nose bloodied numerous times. What happens is they'll give us a bore size and they'll give us a pressure, and we'll the ones to calculate from there. It's typically grossly oversized if we do that. We will supply that with the proviso to say, if you're going to be doing multiple units, we advise them to do one. And then as soon as we put the electric solution in with your motor and drive, your current draw is the force. We find out what the force is, and then what we call right size the actuator. Okay. Typically, we're going to be a couple sizes smaller than what they would be hydraulically, physically.
Yeah.
The problem is hydraulics typically anywhere from about 40 to 60% efficient, where we're in the 90-some% efficient.
Yeah, because I could see that, if you're working with an OEM who's trying to make a design decision, all of a sudden he can save space on his machine when he's building it if he flips over to an electric actuator.
And Dale, I can tell you, I've been embarrassed at times because we will size it based on the parameters they give us. We installed, I just did one for an aggregate where we installed it based on the sizing, and we're running about 20% of the thrust, or 15-20% of the thrust. And everybody turns and looks at you and say, why'd you supply this actuator? I said, well, we supplied the actuator based on what your hydraulics are, but that's not what you're actually producing. What you actually need is what you're seeing now with your electric solution. So if you want, we can right size this and get the right size actuator for you. So it's a way to do it. It's hard to convince them, especially injection molding and such. But once they see it, they're amazed. And then it's a question. And we just develop a history as to far of how we convert. Okay. So I think the overall answer to your question is we're going to be typically, if they're correctly sized, right sized, we're going to be probably a couple of order of magnitude smaller than the hydraulics.
Yeah, and I could see that being an advantage because when customers are trying to build machines that don't take up as much footprint, they'd be able to downsize what they're making for their framework and everything else.
Dale, think of it the other way too. You throw your Ethernet on there and you have complete control and you have complete feedback of velocity, position, and thrust, okay, through your Ethernet control, where they don't have that with hydraulics. They're just telling it what to do. They can put some feedback on there. They can put some flow control on there, but they don't, not the kind of control you have electrically. Plus they can get true feedback on each process they do.
Yeah.
You
Okay.
guys have a lot to offer on that solution.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Oh, good. You can move on, Tom.
All right,
Thank
we're going to move on to Macron Dynamics, which is a gantry system. I'm going to start a quick video here, and then we're going to jump right into it because this video is long, but it gives you an idea a little bit about what they do. Okay. I'm going to talk over a little bit. We're doing gantry systems, single axis, multi-axis. They do large, they do small. We do high speed, we do low speed, but we're fabricating. I'm going to jump through this a little bit, guys. And these are all fabricated. They're made in Pennsylvania. They're fabricated here. This one here, we're actually picking off bad pecans on a moving thing. We can do with this pick and place unit, we can do up to 10 picks a second. Very high speed applications. You're going to be surprised at how inexpensive these type of packages are. Again, they're using your servos.
So Tom, do they typically, they tell you what design criteria you need and then they.
I'm sorry, buddy, I'm having trouble. I'm hearing the music behind me. Sorry,
Oh,
hang on. Let
sorry.
me stop this for a second. Yeah, buddy, your question?
Do they typically, you have to give the customer gives you the design criteria and then you have to, and then Macron puts it together? Is that what?
Macron will put the multi-axis together and then we'll work with you on sizing the motors. You already have the algorithms in your Rockwell thing to do the sizing. And then the package gets, if it's a multi-axis package, that gets packaged and fabricated by Macron and shipped as a package. Okay. But we're going to show you both the single axis and multi-axis systems. Let me move on here a little bit. Let me watch so many pecans being picked. And again, the same thing, 2-axis. We call Mac in a box. These systems ship in a week to 10 days. They're pretty quick. So we can do an X, Y, and a Z here. I'll jump ahead a little bit, guys, not to bore you. I'm going to show you some motion, but I don't want to bore you. Let me go back just a hair. This is just a fabricated pick and place. High speed, high repeatability. It's got high repeatability, not necessarily accuracy, but very high repeatability. We're going to show you some of that in the robot controls that we do. I think that's it for there. Let's go to the next slide. Okay. So again, Macron is in just outside of Philadelphia. It's privately owned. It's been in business for 30 years. Actually, the owner of it and the founder of it and I went to engineering school together, so I know Tony very well. Single axis, 7-day lead times. We're shipping things in 2-3 days, guys. We're fabricating. It's just amazing. We can do multi-axis systems. They'll do the complete mechanical solution for you. We'll help you with the motor sizing and gearing. We can supply the gear head right on there. A lot of times we're putting a Stober reducer on there, get a little bit better reducers on there. And the configuration we'll give you. In fact, I just quoted a couple this morning where with their custom application, they did the drawing already. We supplied the drawing and everything's just done very quickly, very, very competently. They are the exclusive supplier to the U.S. Postal Service for all their postal facilities. They've shipped them tens of thousands of 30s of thousands of actuators for package control. We'll get into that a little bit here in a bit. Okay. Single axis, they do single axis where this is the basic anatomy of this thing. It's a belt drive. You got a belt in the center, you got the cart, you got a pulley system with the gearbox on there. But the key is they have their own custom structural beams, and then they also cast the ends. Okay. The key to this whole system and the success, and it's been a very successful system, is their pulley, what they call the return end. And one of the real keys is that the pulley and the shaft are all machined out of one component. Therefore, we're guaranteed alignment. These two halves push together, and you'll see as we get into it, it becomes a very tight system. And we have a way of eliminating the dirt as well off the package. They make their own belt. Well, we have their own belts made for them. And then one of the unique thing is when you tension the belt correctly, the Macron logo gets blurred. That's how you know that it's tensioned correctly. And they're very taut. Okay. We can do different types of bearing supports on these actuators. I'm going to flip to the next screen. We up to 500 foot of stroke. We've actually done actuators that are closer to 1,000 foot in stroke. We have a couple for that. We were doing cameras. We're moving cameras back and forth along a plant. We do some screw actuators, really known for our belts. We do screw actuators. Typically, we're doing the screws when it's a secondary axis to us. We do small axes. We have really small actuators, which we'll show you. We have a bunch of stainless steel IP69K solutions, which we'll be talking about. We also make a thruster. I have a small video on that. That's a neat, unique application, which I'm sure you've seen all over the place. Good alternative to pneumatic actuators. We'll make a telescoping. We'll talk about claws, which is our emergency device, and then some of our other specialty. These are examples of our single axis, where we have a single axis with just a belt and a bearing. We have a single bearing. We can do an offset, do a much heavier bearing if we say a bigger moment load. We also make this what we call a thruster. And I'm going to show you. This is a video real quick of a thruster. Those yellow boxes is what we're replacing with this last actuator here. Okay. We're not generating any force. We're just pushing it out of the way. And it's a very high speed. So they work very well. As I mentioned, we do screw tables. Don't do a lot, but we do screw tables if you need a ball screw or whatever. Typically, we're using this for a second axis, typically a vertical axis where you want a screw on there rather than a belt. Okay. Talked about stainless steel actuators. These are a lot in the food industry and pharma industry. IP69K. I apologize. Again, you'll see the total structure there is wide open. All the things, everything. It's really great for wash down. It's very easy to keep clean. Okay, food and pharma guys love us for that. Okay, everything's got stainless steel hardware, sealed belts, stainless steel pulleys, bearings. Everything's armalloyed for the wash down. So a number of different food and pharma applications. telescoping units. I had a video on this. It's not working real well, but anyway. So if you look over here, these actually telescope and the beam moves in and out. I've used this for loading and unloading presses, a couple 100-ton presses. Take a piece of sheet metal, moving it into a press, get out of the way, the press comes in, we go in, pick the part out. So we can telescope and reach in. You can reach in 6-8 foot and then come out. Just different applications, okay? What we call the Omega drive, where we actually keep the motor stationary and the beam moves up and down. So this block here gets mounted to a fixed position and this beam moves up and down. Great for picking and placing. We do a lot of that on our Z axis, our vertical axes, okay? Multiple axis, we have T-bots, I'll show you those in a second. And these are all, this is what an XY table. We have what we call a double X, XX prime and a Y. And then we're doing a Z as well here with the separate axes. These units, the T-bots and the H-bots, and even the tri-bot are all single belt dual motor. So as kids, if you remember Etch-a-Sketch, where you had the two knobs and you can make the thing move all over and draw really neat pictures. I always struggle with it, but you can make different pictures with it. Got done, you shake it loose. That's the same thing. It's one belt, but two knobs. So if you turn the motors in the same direction, it moves in the X direction. If you turn them in opposite direction, it moves in the Y direction. Don't get too concerned. Your Rockwell has the algorithm for being able to control these actuators. The neat thing is we're not moving the motors. Okay, all we're moving is the carriage. So we are able to move. When we saw that Pecan pick and place, that's an H-bot. It's available, capable of very high speeds because all we're moving is the carriage. We don't have to move a motor for that second axis. Okay. Okay. We go XX. Hang on. So XX, which we saw here, is the one you saw here. That's an XX system, an X and X prime. Do an XY cantilever. Yeah, stainless steel, same thing. Let me just jump through here. So here's an X, a dual X axis. We call it X and X prime. Okay. So you have two carriages, and we can also put two carriages on each belt if we need to handle a bigger load. Okay. Again, we're handling payloads up to 2,000 pounds. Okay. This whole package comes to you. It's custom fabricated and it comes to you as a package. Okay. Up to 900 pounds. This is an X and a Z, and the Z, the beam is moving up and down. Okay. So we're going in as a pick and place. Okay. You can do palletizing. We do whatever. Telescoping Z. Same thing, an XZ, but this is a cantilever. We're hanging out to one side. This is typically lighter loads. XYZ, XX, YY, and the Z in the middle. This we're handling, again, larger loads, larger payloads. Okay. The neat thing, everything comes assembled. All the wireways are already there for carrying. Okay. Everything's already done complete. All you're doing is mounting your motors to the package. This is relatively new. We make a theta, so we can make a rotary unit at the end of that gantry. So we can do X, Y, Z, and theta, or any combination in between there. Okay. This gives you an idea of some of the larger gantries that we would do. This would be an XX system with a Z and an X, Y, Z. We also do these where we have two independent gantries. So we have an X prime in the same space, and these two occupy the same, well, not the exact same space, but they can run independently of each other. So you can have two heads if you're doing a pick and place. Okay, these are the H and the T-bot. So when we talked about two motors, one belt, the T-bot is the vertical version. This is the same thing I'm going to show you with that Pecan. This is an H-bot. Okay, capable of very, very high speeds. All right, we don't shut that off here. And then we also saw in the very beginning of the large gantries. We can do very large systems as well. Very large packages. Okay. You know, there's a Delta robot out there. We also make one, which we call a tripod linear, where we're doing the same thing, except we got 3 belts in here. You can do 160 picks a minute. 5-pound payload. I mean, I have not done one of those yet, but they're out there. I've seen them run in the shop. Okay. This is one of our in between, our two smaller, fits in between our two smaller. Again, 2 motors, 1 belt. This one we're really interested in. This is, you see a target price of 2,000 for this XY system. This is one of those HBOTs. Okay, you put 2 motors on there. So it's 2,000 without your motors and drives, but it makes a very cost-effective, very high-speed capability. Again, we're handling less than 5 pounds. Could very well be, you know, for a lot of your heads. Okay, we'll custom configure them on an XX on a mount, different mount. We do this whole mount setup for you. Robot transfer units. We're going to talk a little bit about these. This is a big business. It's a great business. We do a bunch of them out in the Pittsburgh area, to be honest with you folks. The various different sizes will mate. We're the 7th axis on most of these robots, maybe Scala, Fanuc, Kuka, even the universal ones. We have standard mounts for their units. You got the X and the X prime. Okay, very heavy bearing capacities. Cableways always built in there with a reducer and a single motor in the middle. Okay, these are very popular, very popular. You can put 2 of them on the same unit, 2 independent control. Okay. We also make them where we have a counterbalance. This is actually one that's a universal robot that's a counterbalance, so we can put on a vertical. One of our customers out in the Pittsburgh area actually takes our RTU, mounts it on the wall, like it has a robot that's working, almost looks like a chalkboard. Okay, we can mount it horizontal. We can actually hang them from the ceiling if need be. I'm going to show you a video of it, the RTU. This is one of our bigger ones, but it gives you an idea. Gives you an idea of the speed and the capacity. So what happens here is they'll run them, they'll have one robot, but they'll have multiple cells, and the one robot will service multiple cells. And it'll shift in between the cells. Very high speed. We're seeing repeatabilities to within a couple thousands. Again, very popular in the robot industry. So all your robot integrators, they're out there and they're buying the RTUs. Slide here. We saw the slide at the beginning. This is a theta with a vertical. What they're pitching here is we'll do the whole frame assembly for you, 30 foot tall in this case. Oops, apologize. Okay. We also, with belt actuators, obviously everybody's always concerned if you do a belt actuator on a vertical, well, what if the belt snaps? Well, we have a solution for that, and it's called a clause. And basically how it operates is the claw is between the two, and if for some reason we see a release, the claw immediately gets activated and grabs the whole thing, and the whole thing stops as a brake. So it's a vertical brake. Okay. We also will supply all the accessories. We'll supply the sensors, framing, tensioning tools, all that kind of good stuff. All right. Any questions on that, Macron? Buddy, we all right?
Yes, I was just taking myself off mute. Yes, I think we're good there. I don't, if someone has a question, please take yourself off mute.
Yep. Let me know. Again, this is all custom, folks, so we can make any custom gantry you're looking for us to make. The one last one I surprised Buddy with this morning, I'm going to show you really quickly because it's something that was just presented to us and it fits your industry pretty well. For all these gantry systems and all the robots, the real challenge is doing the end effector. And we work with a company by the name of Zimmer Group, who makes custom end effectors. We've been working with them, working with a guy that's there. I've been working with him for a long time. He just moved here. They've got a tremendous capability, but they have got one particular thing that's extremely interesting. We're working with them in their systems over here, the custom end effectors, where they'll fabricate a custom end effector for you. The one that really triggered me was for you folks here out in the steel industry and steel world. They handle, I'm going to show you this video. They handle, their product can handle the high temperatures of forging. Okay, they can handle the weight, as you can see the size of that robot, and they can handle the temperature. So if you have anybody in your steel industries, your foundries, anything that looking for electric end effectors and pneumatic end effectors that can deal with their heat, these guys can certainly do it. I've never seen anybody, we've always had a challenge. We've never seen anybody being able to do that. These guys have solved the issues. And they, as you can see, they're going up to almost 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit for their systems. Okay. And they have a bunch of different ones for both foundries for handling sand. They do a lot in the automotive industry. They do a lot of the investment casting. We do small work with them, but they also do these large custom end effectors. It's one of those niches that, especially for where you folks are, a lot of big, heavy, in some cases, hot applications. So anyway, that's who we are. That's what we do. Anybody have any questions? Buddy, I think I came in just under an hour for you.
Yeah, it's 11:02, so.
I must have been doing this for a while. Yeah. So anyway, any questions I can answer for anybody? Anything going on? No? I appreciate your time, appreciate your interest. We're looking forward to helping you. We're here to help you and solve your problems with solutions.
Yes. If anyone has wants any follow-up information, we're going to post this video, so it'll be out there. But also follow up with any of our team through Mosma or Tri-State, and we can get a hold of Tom and EAC to help solve your solutions, whether it be where you're trying to replace maybe an old system that has old gearboxes, or you have something where you're trying to move away from some air supply, something that's being powered by air or by oil, by hydraulics. Contact us. We can get involved and get the right people to help out with your solution.
Just to let you know, we work with most of your Rockwell counterparts are all doing the same. We're working with these companies with them, the Rexels and the Froms and the Rumsey. Well, not Rumsey now, it's Kendall. Yeah, they're all big customers of ours of these products. They all do real well, and we do a lot of custom work with them. So we're here to help you and help you grow your business as well.
Okay. Well, thank you for everyone for attending, and again,
All right.
have a good
Thank you,
holiday.
gentlemen. Appreciate it. Take care.
Like